Welcome back to the Awakening with Kelvin Phiri and to another episode in our Bridges to Prosperity series, where we explore the future of Africa and the issues that shape us one conversation at a time. Before we continue, please note this disclaimer. The views shared in this episode are for public education, civic dialogue, and critical reflection only. They do not represent legal advice or a political endorsement of any party, family, or government position. We encourage respectful discussion in the comments as we examine this important national matter together. Today, we need to have a sober conversation about President Edgar Lungu's burial and the tension it has brought to the surface in Zambia. Because many of you have asked, why is the Lungu family taking this position? All our past presidents, from President Kaunda to Banda, have been buried at Embassy Park with state funerals, even when they had tensions with their successors. So, what is different this time? Is the family taking a political stance, or are they considering the Zambia that President Lungu ruled for 7 years, having been elected twice? Let's go back for a moment. Zambia has developed a tradition that is unique and deeply symbolic. All 5 past presidents, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Frederick Chiluba, Levi Mwanawasa, Rupia Banda, and Michael Sata, are buried at Embassy Park in Lusaka. This site has become more than just a burial ground. It has become a symbol of unity, a place where Zambians can reflect on their history and the sacrifices of their leaders, regardless of the political differences that existed between them when they were alive. We know that Dr. Kaunda had significant differences with Chiluba. Chiluba had his own tensions with Mwanawasa and Banda with Sata. But when it came to their passing, the state stepped in and a state funeral was held, respecting the office they held and the role they played in our history. Despite all the challenges, the nation came together to give these leaders a dignified farewell. Now, we have the case of President Edgar Lungu. The family, through their lawyer, Mekebezulu, has taken a position that many see as a direct challenge to this tradition. They argue that President Lungu was mistreated in his final years, including the suspension of his presidential benefits after he himself announced his return to active politics. A move which, under the former President's Benefits Act, led to the loss of those benefits and the withdrawal of his security detail, medical cover, and official staff. Combined with what they describe as humiliation by the state, the family believes it would be hypocritical for the same state to now insist on giving him a state funeral. They have gone further to demand that President Hakainde Hichilema should not preside over the funeral, arguing that it would not be dignified under the current circumstances. This demand has raised serious questions. Is this about dignity, or is this about politics? Is the family thinking about Zambia, the nation President Lungu served, or is this about settling scores with the current administration? To unpack this, let us remember that President Lungu himself set a precedent when Dr. Kenneth Kaunda passed away. The Kaunda family initially wanted a private burial for Dr. Kaunda, but the government at the time under President Lungu insisted on a state funeral at Embassy Park, citing national interest and tradition. The matter went to court, and while it was dismissed on procedural grounds, it paved the way for a state funeral to proceed. The government argued then, and still argues now, that the death of a former president is not just a family matter. It is a national event that requires the involvement of the state to honor the leader and to give the nation closure. So why is it different now that it is President Lungu's turn? Why is the family demanding conditions that no other family has demanded before, including the condition that the sitting president should not preside over the funeral, when we know that the president represents the state and the state must host visiting heads of state and dignitaries during such funerals? Is the Lungu family's position purely personal or is it political? On the one hand, the family's grievances cannot be ignored. They feel betrayed by a state that they believe mistreated President Lungu in his final years. They have cited incidents where he was blocked from traveling for medical treatment, denied access to public spaces, and had his benefits withdrawn, only for the state to now claim him in death for national honor. They believe that allowing the same administration to preside over his burial would be an act of hypocrisy and disrespect. On the other hand, the state argues that the presidency is bigger than the individual, and the tradition of burying presidents at Embassy Park is about the unity of Zambia and the respect for the office of the presidency, regardless of who is in power. They argue that President Lungu served Zambia for 7 years, was elected twice, and deserves to be honored by the nation he served, just like his predecessors. They believe that the family's position, particularly the demand to exclude President Hichilema from presiding over the funeral, is unrealistic and undermines the state's role. This brings us to a deeper question. Should family wishes override national interest when it comes to burying former presidents? In our culture, funerals are deeply personal and family-centered, but when it comes to a former head of state, the funeral becomes a national event. It is no longer just about the family, it is about the nation coming together to reflect, to mourn, and to honor the history and contributions of the leader, no matter the political differences. President Lungu's death is testing Zambia's democracy and its values of unity and respect. The government must handle the situation with humility and respect, acknowledging the grievances of the family and the late president's wishes, while the family must also recognize that President Lungu's legacy belongs to the nation, not just to them. This is a time for statesmanship on both sides. The family's concerns about hypocrisy and trust issues are valid, but we must also ask ourselves what message it sends to the nation and the world if Zambia cannot give a dignified, state-led burial to a former president simply because of disagreements. We must remember that even in the past, despite tensions between presidents and their successors, Zambia has always managed to come together to honor its leaders in death. This is part of what has kept Zambia stable and united even when other nations have struggled. We must also reflect on the symbolism of Embassy Park. It is not just a cemetery, it is a place that tells the story of Zambia's democracy, struggles and triumphs. It is where our children can go to learn about the men who led this country, the sacrifices they made and the lessons they left behind. President Lungu's place in that story is significant, and denying him a place at Embassy Park would be denying the nation a part of its history. This moment is not just about a burial, it is about the kind of Zambia we want to build. Are we a nation that can rise above our differences, even in difficult times, to honor our leaders and respect our traditions? Or are we a nation that allows political differences to divide us, even in death? As we reflect on this, let us remember that how Zambia buries its presidents speaks volumes about the strength of its democracy and its respect for its own history. It is time for both the government and the family to put Zambia first, to find common ground, and to ensure that President Lungu is given a dignified farewell that honors his service while respecting the wishes of his family in a manner that upholds Zambia's unity. What do you think? Should President Lungu be buried at Embassy Park with a state funeral? in line with Zambia's tradition, or should the family's wishes override the tradition this time? Is the family's stance a matter of principle, or has it become political? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice is important in this conversation as Zambia stands at this critical moment. Thank you for watching, and if you found this discussion valuable, please like, share and subscribe to The Awakening with Kelvin Phiri for more content that helps us think deeply about the issues that shape Zambia and Africa's future. Until next time, let us continue building bridges to prosperity, one conversation at a time.